On this. What is going on, y'all? This is another thrilling episode of the Pro Physique Code lifestyle series. This is Phil Pirtle coming at you once again with the best, Jess Best, and Queen of the Castle, Christina. How y'all doing today?
Hello.
All right. So today we are going to be talking about a topic that I know we've all experienced this situation whenever it comes to dieting. It's something that we have a talk with all of our clients about at some point or another. And that is what to do when the diet gets hard. So the first thing to keep in mind, I feel, is, we've got to go into any type of dieting phase with some good goals, with some good expectations and some realities. Jess, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I think like having a timeline set, but also just expectations, like you said, Phil. I actually did a podcast with Matt like a while back on setting realistic fat loss expectations, but having your expectations set at the beginning of any kind of goal is really important for adherence wise, right? It's where people kind of start to fall off when they're just like, well, why is this taking so long? Or they just don't have the right realistic expectations in terms of like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. And that doesn't work for them because they have kids and they have a family, or maybe they just go too hard too soon and they're sore, whatever it is. And that's where like a lot of the falling off the bandwagon or whatever that saying is, comes in, is like, hey, we just got to make sure that you have realistic expectations and like realities of what to expect in a fat loss phase or a diet.
Yeah, I think that's probably the first place that I usually start with someone is, okay, well, what are you expecting to see in the next 30 days, in the next 3 months, and in the next 6 months? Because if somebody says, well, in 30 days, I want to have dropped 30 pounds of body fat, and in 60 days, I want to have dropped 50 pounds, and in 90 days, I want to have built my calories up to where I can maintain this awesome progress on 6,000 calories a day.
Oh my God. It's like, or look, you get the, you think that, you can build back up your calories. So like, you can eat an infinite amount of calories, or maybe, and it's like very individual dependent, like maybe somebody's body is just not ready for a dieting phase in general. But yeah, like just what is that, like the keto diet that like, oh, I'll lose like 15 pounds in a week. Great. Okay, cool. But like, you're also not eating any carbs, and like, what's going to happen after those 7 days?
Right. Like, what is the expectation for your own adherence? Are you expecting that you can have a cheat meal, or you can have cheat weekends the entire time? Like, that's a lot of what I start off with, because here at Pro Physique we do 30-minute consultation calls for free to start off with every single person that we talk to. So that is always something that I like to bring up is, okay, well, what are your expectations? And then maybe it's a matter of, all right, if you're saying that you've done the keto diet in the past, but you keep putting all the weight back on, right? Well, why are we going to keep doing something that we know doesn't work? What's going to be different this time if that's what we run right back to? So, all right, let's walk through what is the expectation of somebody who says, I'm going to do keto, right? The benefit is, sure, you're going to lose a lot of water weight. You're going to lose glycogen right out of the gate. You're probably also going to be a little bit miserable if you like potatoes and pasta and bread, right? Or fruit. I
like that.
Yeah, like,
yeah, right.
I can't tell you the last time I went a day without blueberries. Like, come on, let's
Before you go further, Phil, can you explain real quick for everyone why, when you go on a diet like keto, or if you cut out all of those carbs, why you lose the water weight really fast? Because I feel like that's one of the things people always say, where they're like, every time I do this, I lose a ton of weight right away.
Every time I cut carbs,
need to stick to it. Yeah. And so they think it's like this magical thing, but there's science behind it.
So the majority, so just because you lose weight doesn't mean you lose body fat. So it just means that you lost mass. You lost some kind of mass, whether that was fat mass, whether that was water weight, whether that was lean skeletal mass, or if you had your arm taken off by a train randomly, then you lost skeletal mass, you lost muscle mass, you lost water mass, you lost fat mass.
Have you heard of that one a lot? Like, do you find out about that?
Yeah, at least
It's
5
a good
times a
diet
week.
hack.
Yeah, at
Cut
least
off your
5
arm.
times a week. So whenever you lose weight on the scale, there's multiple things that weight can be reflective of a decrease in. So whenever you do a ketogenic or carnivore diet or any type of low carb diet, what you end up doing is your body is going to run through the glycogen that is stored. Now, what happens is your body is not replenishing that from carbohydrates. So whenever you're losing the glycogen, glycogen does contain water, and water is going to have weight on the scale. So usually whenever somebody runs a ketogenic diet and they see that nice, big, exciting drop, and let's face it, we're all human. We've all been through dieting phases. It's exciting to see, wow, in a week I lost 5 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever it is, depending on how much you have to lose. But after the first week or 2 weeks, well, now your body doesn't have a lot of glycogen and you're not really replenishing it because you're getting 25 grams of carbs a day or 30 grams of carbs or even none if you're doing a carnivore diet.
You're also probably crying.
I know I would be. I mean, I also cry every day.
Right?
Like I'm a big softie. So whenever you lose that weight, it's not a sign that you lost body fat necessarily. So that is the first thing that I always want people to understand whenever they say, well, I've done keto before and I see that big drop, right? But let's reframe and let's think about bigger picture stuff, like you're maintaining a good relationship with food, being consistent. Like that's more of what I want to work with people on. And as long as we build that initial foundation, like I just got a guy this week that signed up with me that has never tracked a calorie a day in his life. So I'm not just throwing protein, fats, and carbs at him. The first starting point for this guy is just simply going to be, let's get a lean protein serving at every single time that we eat, whether it's a snack or a meal, we're getting lean protein. We're also going to have 5 servings of produce per day, meaning if it comes from the ground or grows off of a tree, that is produce. So if we're having a banana with our breakfast and we're having blueberries with our post-workout oatmeal and we're having broccoli at lunch and asparagus at dinner with a sweet potato, boom, there's 5 servings of produce. Congratulations, you're being a healthy adult. You're doing stuff that we should all tell our kids to do as well. So that's where I always go, let's set the expectation first of let's make sure we've got this foundational habit of these things. That way now, all right, say we are in a good spot to go into a calorie deficit right out of the gate. Cool. We have this foundation. We can now build the house on it, because as it gets harder, as we're building that house, like, we look at things and go, okay, I'm framing. Framing is challenging. Hanging drywall and mudding it is a little bit more challenging, at least for me. I don't know.
Plumbing.
What's that?
Plumbing.
I love plumbing actually
Electrical.
because it's just
Like house stuff. Yeah. Sure.
I love plumbing. Like electrical scares the crap out of me. I will do plumbing all day long. I will take water over electric. In fact, I was the same way playing Pokemon growing up as a kid. But anyways, so
Nerd.
It gets more complicated, right? Like there's more like layers to making that house look really, really great. And that's where the diet gets hard, right? You have to be starting to be like more meticulous with what's going on in terms of like intake or energy output. And then there's like a whole lot of different factors that I think we want to talk about. But one of the things that I found was so funny was we were talking right before we started recording about what some like not diet hacks, but diet strategies rather, like foods or things that we would do to like help like tactile things, just so like the listeners can like take away some of the like tactile things before we like get down and dirty into like strategies of what also to do. But Christina, you were talking about like making some crazy mixture of protein, but that was in a prep, right?
Yes. So, and so part of what we were talking about with that, I had mentioned, like for some people, if they're in a dieting phase and they are feeling like it's harder to stick to their choices that they're making, or they're having trouble with consistency, or they're just not enjoying the diet, which quite frankly, I feel like it's one of those things where it's important to talk to people about the fact that like, it's going to suck, right? Like we're putting the body into a situation it doesn't want to be in. Like the body wants to find just a comfy place to hang out, find homeostasis, not change anything. And then we're saying like, oh, I know you're happy right now, but I'm going to take away and make you get rid of some of the things that you're holding on to that make you feel good. And so it's going to suck at some point.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
Right.
you know, like you guys had mentioned earlier, someone had said like when people bring up cheat meals right away, and that's like a huge red flag. I feel like when I'm talking to somebody when they're like, so how many cheat meals do I get?
Yep.
Well, this diet's fucked. Like,
Let's
sounds terrible.
restructure some framing here that we're using.
Yeah.
Let's start to
We have to
read.
Yeah, like
about
language
this.
matters too.
Yeah. Like the way that we're thinking about it all around, where it's like, okay, how soon can I get a break from this? And can I just totally let my hair down? But when we were talking about the food options, so I had mentioned I used to make this crazy mixture of cottage cheese and Quest protein chips and lean ground beef when I was in prep, because it would give me this like huge bowl of protein. And between the it was just really hard to break down basically. So it would keep me nice and full for a good amount of time. But like, there's two ways to look at that too. When you're in prep is like, do you want to have highly, and I know we're lifestyle series, but like that was an extreme diet. Do you want to have highly palatable meals while you're in a diet, or do you want to take down the deliciousness and get far more simple to try and kill that craving side of things? And like, you're never going to be able to make them completely go away if you're hungry, because your body is going to say, give me sugar, give me something fatty and salty, because it's trying to keep you alive. So it's going to drive your cravings with those desires. But I know for me, like if I try to go super, super, super simple, it's never been I'm not one of those people that really works for with stuff. Like I just find more joy in the diet, and like I can stay on it longer if I make sure to include something that is like I always call it like a little hug for the day from your food.
I love that.
So Power Crunch bars are like that thing where if you're in a diet, wasting 13 grams of fat on a Power Crunch bar is stupid. But I did it every single day of my prep.
But it works for you. It works for
was
you, right?
My thing. And so that's one of the things to consider is like, if you're getting, say it's chocolate. I know for a lot of people, they need to have chocolate every day. So is having
That's
Right
because
bite of
raising your
chocolate-
hand, by the way.
Right here.
Oh, yeah.
People can't see me.
So it's like,
right
does
here.
that help you like to look forward to it all day long? Whereas for some other people, as soon as they break that seal and they have like one bite of it, they're like, well, I might as well eat the whole bag. So tomorrow it's not in the house and I can move forward. So
Yep.
are you more of a like palatable dieter or more of a simple dieter, Jess?
Yeah, I love that you're like, hey, you want to know yourself as a dieter, and you might like fuck up, and that's fine because we're all humans. But this is part of like figuring out what kind of diet strategies and like adherence. Adherence always is key, right? And that's why we talked about expectations, but it's like, okay, how can you make these things work for you? So I like that you called it like your daily hug meal, because that is my like evening meal. And a lot of people really struggle with like nighttime, like snacking, whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, I don't struggle with it because I plan for it, because I know that I want something sweet after dinner, like a few hours after dinner, a few hours before bed. And I'm that person. I'm like, yo, I want chocolate. So I make something really just like a nice warm hug of oatmeal, and I melt some chocolate in it, and I put some core nutritionals, protein powder in there. So it's a chocolatey oatmeal with, whatever, or you
Use
can
code podcast for a discount on core nutritionals. Core,
right.
It's fantastic. We love them. And yeah, that code is podcast.
I dig it.
Just a little tidbit in there. Or you can do it with like Greek yogurt. and throw some protein powder in there, flavor that Greek yogurt. That's how you get the flavored Greek yogurt, because we're going for plain because it's lower in carbs. Put some dark chocolate in there, you get fiber and you get fats. Wicked awesome, right? Like, so you can make things work for you. But for me, what I've also found is I'm a very like texture person. So I need texture in my meals. So I will change up the way that I'm cooking things. So it's not like I might be having chicken breast every week, for example, but one week I will grill it. And the other week, and the next week, I will like cut it all up in pieces and stir fry it. And the next week,
Shred it.
Shred it in the crock pot. Oh my God. Diet hack. Right. So you're eating the same thing, but it's cooked differently. And so that texture to me keeps things like interesting. How about you, Phil?
So real quick, I'm going to go ahead and throw this in early since you mentioned that you're a chocoholic.
Yes.
So Milton Hershey, the founder of the Hershey's company, was actually supposed to have been on the Titanic. He had a $300 reserved spot on there, but he ended up not going on the trip. So imagine you could have not had Hershey's chocolate.
That was the Lord's work right there, keeping him off that boat.
Right? So
it's my favorite chocolate. I know it's not like great, but I dig a plain Hershey's bar, I've got to say.
Yeah, that's whenever it comes time for Halloween and I'm raiding my kids' candy bucket for my dad tax, like that is what I go for. I go for just the plain, simple, either Hershey's chocolate or any of like the crackle or the crunches. Those are my jams. But back on topic, whenever it comes to knowing yourself as a dieter. So very much the same way. I can eat the exact same breakfast and lunch, 6 days a week. I'll usually take like one day on the weekend whenever I'm in a dieting phase to change things up. And maybe that's where I'm doing a air quotes protein pancake. And sometimes it's just finding a macro friendly recipe for something that, is it the real McCoy? No. But is it still really damn good? Yes. I'll take something that's an 8 out of 10 if it means I'm accomplishing my goals, because I know IHOP is not going out of business. Denny's, Cracker Barrel, like all these pancake places are not going out of business anytime soon. So sure, I have those future breakfasts with my family to go to at some other point, but if I've got some goals and I know, look, my fats are a little low, my carbs are a little low, but I still want to have some fun. All right, well, there's one breakfast out of the week where I can do a, protein pancake where I'm using maybe some oats, or I'm making oat flour out of my own oats. Using egg whites is a fantastic option. Sprinkle in some protein powder, a little bit of baking flour, and boom. Now you can still have a protein pancake. Personally, I use the core cinnamon French toast from the Pro line, and awesome stuff.
Pro is all the way when you're like baking or like cooking something. Pro is like my jam.
I used to take the Lil Buff cake mixes because I am like obsessed with those. And I would turn them into waffles, but you have to like really experiment with making sure you have the right mixture so it doesn't explode out of your waffle maker.
Yes.
But that was one of my favorite things to do, was I would take that because it's so high in protein and you get fiber and everything. Yeah. And then so the pumpkin spice ones with a fried egg on top, and then it's all like runny and delicious, and you got the
getting that sweet and savory.
Oh, nice. Oh, look at all these like diet
food ideas.
It's almost like we've all done a few of these diets.
Weird. But I think the important thing is like we all found what worked for us. And like I've been through multiple dieting, like different diets. They've all been preps. Okay. Oh, I actually
you just had one that wasn't, right? And
you're right. I was like, wait a minute. No, I did just like a normal fat loss. But how I kind of approached all of those were very different because my mindset was really different in a lot of those. But yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is adherence is key, and we all figured it out. Like I figured it out. It was different every time. But yeah, I
That
think
that was what I would say is one of the most overlooked things, is that people are so prone to think that there's only one way, right? Like they go quoting the Mandalorian, this is the way. No, there's multiple approaches that we can take to fat loss. Yes, you can eat the exact same, for some people starting off, a meal plan might be the best possible option, where they know, okay, I've worked with my coach to set up a meal plan. These are going to be some easy, doable breakfast, lunch, dinner, and here's some snacks. I'm just going to stick with this so I can get some progress. I can get that confidence to now go, all right, well, I'm getting tired of, canned tuna for my lunch. Let me now swap it over to shrimp. All right, awesome. Now we're making that progress. We're also growing and evolving as a dieter. So that's a lot of it, is just knowing what is going to be most sustainable for you. So like I was saying, I can do the exact same breakfast and lunch for 6 straight days in a row. Every day I'm probably deviating for dinner just a little bit, but it's going to be just changing up that texture like you talked about. So hey, I might have just, ground beef that I just browned it in a pan, and I'm throwing that over some rice, some broccoli, and I'm throwing in some pineapple in there. Trust me, it's amazing.
I was
Put
gonna
some
say that is a
teriyaki.
solid meal. Oh
That
my
Yeah.
sounds so
God.
good. Maybe I do like simpler foods more than I think, because I'll hear this stuff and I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing.
But
I'm
but
like
then
actually writing that down for what I want to eat next week. Like, yeah.
so then the next night though, I might look at that ground beef and go, you know what? I'm going to make my macro friendly blue cheese ranch burgers. That it's a lot more work than just package of 93.7 ground beef, or 96.4 into a pan, stir it, salt, pepper, garlic, onion powder, done. Like whenever I'm making those burgers, it is a little bit more involved, but there's also a lot more palate for just a little extra fat. So I might just change up from day to day how I'm using the ingredient also. Or I might have a full on day where I go, oh, I am firing up the grill because it's nice weather, and I'm going to get out the, oh crap, what do you call them? The little like boards that the pizza goes on. I'm going to put those on the grill. I'm going to fire grill 2 pizzas, one for me and my wife, one for my kids. And there's a lot more work involved in that, especially making a, lower carb, low fat version of a pizza. So it's just knowing what is going to keep you consistent, because I could deprive myself of something that is, a pizza or red meat or whatever all week long. And then whenever the weekend comes, I could fall completely off the rails as soon as I see it in front of me. So
Mhm.
keeping in mind that this is how I'm going to stay consistent throughout 7 days. And now I've had 1 week turn into 2 weeks, turn into a month, turn into a successful, you know, 12, 14, 15, 16 week dieting phase, just from knowing myself. Now, another thing to keep in mind is, there are going to be those mental barriers that pop up. And we've talked before about how it's a lot of just managing the space between your ears and mastering that. I've said till I'm blue in the face on here, everything you do is by your choice. So sometimes, like what we said, is the chocolate in the house going to be the trigger, or is it something that you can have a tiny bit of? Knowing what's your discipline level is a huge one. Jess, have you always been pretty disciplined with able to manage portion control with chocolate or any other huge palatable food for you?
Oh, hell no. I think discipline is absolutely something that you build. Like what is discipline, right? Like we can talk about that, but we're not going to. But I think it's a self-belief that you can like reminding yourself that you have control over these things. And it is like, I feel like self-discipline is kind of hand in hand with self-belief, and holding yourself accountable to those things and knowing that you can follow through. And then that kind of goes back to that mindset and like your language that you're using with the dieting phase. Because if you are always talking about how, oh, I wish I could have the chocolate, I wish I could eat this, this is so hard, etc., etc. You know what? It's going to be fucking hard, guys. Like, excuse my lip clip, but like, don't make it hard on yourself when a diet is absolutely something that you choose. And so, you know, when you're starting out and this is maybe like your first fat loss phase and you are trying to figure out how to control hunger and, you know, keeping those promises to yourself, you know, it takes time, it takes practice, but it's more of a, okay, just get through. Like, some of the strategies I give my clients is like, hey, take a breath, right? Before you make that choice, that immediate gratification, take a breath, count to 3. Think about, how do I feel if I make this choice right now versus what about my future self? And would I be proud of the choices that I am making, right? And always like locking that into your self-belief and your choices. So you're in control, right? Like the chocolate or whatever it is does not have control over you. You have control over that, but you have to also believe in yourself. So it's like having that like moment of breath, of wait, forward thinking. And that can take, like, that takes practice. It's hard. It's hard to develop that. And that's part of developing discipline. I haven't opened it yet. So the fat loss phase that I just did, which was like 3 months long, whatever. It wasn't for a prep or anything. Trader Joe's came out with it's around Christmas time that they have like their jingle jangle mix, but they had a like springle jangle, and it was like a spring jingle jangle.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, I'm buying that. Like, I was like, yeah. It is still like, I hide these things. Like Bob used to, like in prep, would like find chocolate in places and he'd be like, what the hell? And I don't hide it randomly, like in my bedroom or something, guys. Like, this is just in my pantry. But I'll put it like in the back of my pantry, like down below, or I'll put it like up higher. So when you have those moments of, let's say, weakness, or like, oh my God, I'm hungry, we're going to open the fridge, we're going to open the pantry. What do I got going in there? You're not like stared down with.
You're not immediately greeted with it. It's not staring you right in the face.
Going, and so exactly. So it gives you that opportunity to be like, wait, right? And so, yeah, it's absolutely something that I've built up. And, you know, again, we all give into some of those things every now and then. But it's
the mental battle is such an intriguing one, because there's so many sides and so many faces to that, you know. Like, Christina, tell me if you hear this one, because I get this a lot. I'd say I run into this at least once a week, where somebody goes, oh, you know, I'm checking in this week, I'm getting close to a barrier that I have never broken through. Is this something you run into a lot, and how do you help your clients with it? Or they're like, Christina, I've not been below 190 every time I do any diet. That is my sticking point.
Oh yeah, it'll be like, I cannot do it. And the funny part with that is, like, for the longest time, mine was 150. When I first met my husband, I had my own sticking point where, like, I remember I was getting ready for our wedding. And you know, everyone thinks they need to like shred for the dress and like things like that. So this is many moons ago. So my answer was to run for an hour, like 6 days a week, trying to eat like next to nothing. Wow. And I mean, I'd gotten to like a place I was happy with, but I remember even after that, I always thought like, I'll never get below 150. I'll never get there. So I had our first 2 kids, and after Cora was when I did my first real like cut. And I remember I was losing the baby weight, and I got to like 151 or whatever. And we would be talking about it, and he'd be like, no, like, this is like, you're doing so well with this. I bet you're going to be able to break it this time. And I was like, no, my body just physically cannot do that. It doesn't go there. And really, like, so I pushed, right? Because I was like, all right, if like, I feel good, I feel like I can keep doing this. So pushed through it. I did. I wound up getting down into like the high 130s for the first time in my adult life. And then like, that was the first cut I had made it through, where once I got through that one, I was like, ooh, I want to try my first bikini prep, because that was like the hardest I had ever pushed myself in a situation, and was successfully able to get through those barriers. And so I was like, okay, I think I can commit to like something at the time that seemed even scarier. And a lot of it came down to the fact that, like, to get past that point, I had to make changes I had never made before. I had to stick to them in a way I had never stuck to them before, and keep going. And like with everything you guys were just saying over the last couple of minutes, one of the things that kept popping into my head, I don't know if you saw Coach Adams' reel that he had posted this week on Instagram, where it had the audio where the guy was talking about his father, who was an alcoholic. And he was like, are you going to be sober forever? And he was like, I don't know, but I know I'm going to get through today. Like, that's what I'm going to focus on.
Yes.
And he had said it to him, you know, being incredible deadlifting or something like that. But like that, like way of thinking, I feel like is the one that a lot of people need to learn how to really dial in and just lean into, because like we were talking about before with like the time frame stuff and the way you talk to yourself and your self-belief, a lot of people will be like, God, there's just no way I can do this for 90 days. Like, there's no way I can make it that long. And they're already thinking, so like maybe today they're doing really well. It's 5:30 at night. They've hit their macros, they drink their water, they got their workout in, and all of a sudden they're stressed out about what they're going to do in like 7 weeks for Halloween or something. And like that ends up, well, shit, now I need a cookie. And now they're going to go blow their day. Whereas if it was just a mindset of like, I can have some grit. I'm the one who chose to put myself into this situation. It was my idea to try and lose weight. I can own that and honor the choices that I want to make for myself. And I can get through the next like 4 hours. And
Grit
I mean, and like
good word.
I feel like what ends up leading people off of the path entirely is that it's choosing the path of least resistance and saying, well, you know what? It's never worked before, so fuck it, I'm done. And then what is it, like maybe 4 weeks before they're having that conversation with themselves again, where it's like, okay, that's it. This time I'm cutting out all the carbs. I'm going to do it forever. Like, you know, and they revert back to it.
What's interesting to me, and this is something that I've had to talk with a lot of people about over the years, is when you come up with the excuse, right? Like let's actually like break this whole process down. Imagine if it was something like, designing a piece of wood, right? Like you're literally cutting the tree down, you are processing the timber, and you are then selling it, and then you're also the consumer buying it, right? Like you're the one coming up with, you are making the excuse because you're looking for it. You are then taking that first opportunity to take the excuse, and then it's just reinforcing it with, I saw the pizza advertisement, and the next thing I know, I'm ordering through an app, right? Look, it's one thing to account for a slice of pizza into your macros, but whenever that one turns into the entire pizza, okay, well, we have to reframe some mental habits. But literally you are the salesman of the excuse. You are the manufacturer, you are the salesman, and you are also the customer whenever you're putting your own excuses in there. And look, at the end of the day, we're trying to help you reach your goals, but we can't want it for you more than you want it for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of where people struggle is that exactly what you're talking about, that self-sabotage, or, oh, and then I self-sabotaged and I blah, blah, blah. And like, I've absolutely been there. I get that mentality. But you're right. It comes down to, like we were talking about, the self-accountability, first of all, that, yep, you made that choice. And then that self-belief. It's like, okay, have grit, right? You have grit. You can do hard things. Why does this one thing need to, just lead into another? Doesn't have to. But yeah, it's
the one slice of pizza turns into the whole pizza, turns into, oh my God, I'm so stuffed and full and I feel disgusting and I'm not going to go work out today. And okay, well, screw it, I'm going to have a beer and then I'm going to stay up late. And it's like, all right, come on, let's stop at some point. Let's stop
Yeah.
at some point during that process. So whenever I'm working with someone that, maybe it's your first time dieting ever. Hunger is going to be part of the expectation for any kind of a calorie deficit. At some point, you will get hungry. It's knowing how to manage that hunger. It's also knowing how to mentally manage that hunger. So, two things that I want to touch on real quick. So, number one is using the Halt technique, which is an acronym for asking yourself, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Or are you tired? Go through and ask yourself, take that time to evaluate, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, and based on when's the last time I ate, was it a legitimate meal with some protein, some fats, some carbs, or was it a Pop Tart? Okay. Are you hungry? If so, well, maybe instead of getting the second Pop Tart in the package, let's get something that is going to be more nutrient rich and less calorically dense. Let's get the chicken and some veggies going. Let's dump a can of salsa onto your chicken breast in the slow cooker. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
I
So
did that
good.
for dinner tonight, by the way.
Oh,
I just did that.
the Newman's own black bean and corn salsa on chicken, amazing. So
I'm getting so
as-
many food ideas here, guys. It's lovely.
Look, I've been flexible with dieting old enough that it can vote. So I've got recipes. Okay.
Jess, have you gotten the corn salsa from Trader Joe's?
No.
Oh, it's a tomato-less corn salsa. It's
Ooh.
the greatest thing in the entire world. And you just put a little bit on your salad and so it helps cut down on the need for dressing, but
Yeah.
it is so good and you need it.
Sounds like I could put that on an omelet.
Everything. Yes, I have. Yep.
Is it the salsa equivalent to Frank's Red Hot? I put that shit on everything.
100%. I'll literally eat it with a spoon. I could just sit and eat the jar as a side dish. It's so
Let's keep an eye out for it. But
Yeah.
so
Okay, Halt method. What else, Phil?
Yes. So angry. Are you angry? Is it, oh my gosh, my mother-in-law just did X, Y, and Z, and next thing you know, you're reaching into the pantry. Okay, well, if you're angry, address those feelings, confront them. Your feelings, your emotions, they are, evaluate, is it valid? Recognize that's not tied into you're actually hungry. Are you lonely? It's totally normal that oh, well, I'm just kind of sitting around, I'm doing nothing, there's nobody here, I'm not talking, I'm not interacting, I'm bored. Okay, if that's the case, then I've got another technique for that. But finally, are you tired? Whenever we're tired, it's easy to go, well, I'm in the habit of right before bed, I grab 2 or 3 cookies and I get a spoonful of peanut butter, and then I go settle in and watch some Netflix. So run through the Halt protocol. The other one is to just simply recognize that anytime that you are slipping away from your diet plan, right? And it's tied into any type of emotions or boredom, it's not an active act of self-sabotage. You are not sitting down with the jar of peanut butter going, I'm eating this peanut butter because I would like to eat an extra 1,000 calories today. That's likely not your purpose. That's not why you're doing this. You're doing it because you need to replace a habit for something you are feeling or something you are experiencing. So I always say, try to occupy your hands for 5 minutes. Drawing and coloring is actually shown to reduce stress and reduce cortisol levels. So do you got a paper and pen nearby? Start doodling. Even if you're not someone who knows how to draw, guess what? Pop on University of YouTube and you can look up how to draw and then blank. That's what
adult
I'm doing.
Coloring books.
Yes. Adult, oriented. Not triple X, but I guess people could do what they want.
Yeah.
Because I found that whenever I searched, so my wife has a degree in art history, and she was an art teacher, so huge into art. I made the mistake on our first Christmas together of just going on Amazon and typing in adult coloring book, and it's like the one scene out of Superbad, if you catch my drift.
Oh.
Did you get them as a gag gift? Because I feel like you might need to now.
So the first year I didn't. The second year I did.
The
first year was that
I'm
gamble.
going to.
Right? I'm yeah. I've seen ones where it's it's
Ordering.
a bunch of swear words, the pictures are swear words, but they're all like fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, you can
But
color
it's
buck and, ooh.
like, see, and like now I love that right now, Jess, you're like smiling over like, oh my God, that's so cool. So imagine now, like you're having a stressful time and you see that coloring book and, it's, just like a 4-letter word or whatever. And it's all these lines you can just color and you're like, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. I'm coloring in this word.
Yeah.
Now you're feeling better. Your hands are occupied and that 5 minutes might turn into 10 minutes. Or like I've got another guy that I know I've talked about him until I'm blue in the face, but I love his technique for managing the mental side of, grazing or snacking or trying to deviate is he sets a timer for however many minutes he can spare, and he'll just get working on a little miniature Lego set. He accounts for it in his monthly budget.
I love
You know
that.
what? I'm buying this little Mandalorian set, or I'm buying this Harry Potter set, or I'm buying this, city set, and just doop, tinker with it, build it. Whenever you're done with it, break it back down. Next time you need it, there it is.
That's a cheap date night idea.
I
It
like
really
that.
is.
I like to bring up so if someone just wants to snack or whatever, and they're getting to that time frame where it's like that feeling of I just want to eat something or whatever. And I'll do this for myself where if I'm going through the fridge and there's no reason for me to be there and I'm kind of just poking around the pantry or something, I try to ask myself, like, would I eat a bag of broccoli right now?
Right.
Like, am I so hungry that I'm like, oh my God, I don't care what it is, throw a frozen bag of broccoli in the microwave and I'm going to eat that. And if the answer is not like, yeah, let's start with broccoli, then I'm not hungry. Like I want something sweet. I'm looking for something I'm not supposed to be having in that moment. And I just want like a quick, like dopamine hit. And just like Phil said, there's like a million other ways to try and get that at least first. And like, I'll tell clients the same thing, like go do something else. Go, like I have a lot of like moms and stuff. And so I'm like, go fold some laundry, take your kids to the park, go do something else to entertain yourself. And then when you come back, if you're still hungry, I tell my clients this all the time. If they turn in their little tracker and they're like, sorry, I went over on protein this week, I am never going to get grumpy about you going over on protein.
Yeah.
So
Ooh.
if you're really at the point where you're just like, I need something, make a protein shake, like blend it up, have it be as delicious as it can be for being just like some protein and maybe some almond milk or something like that. So it has a little bit of staying powder, sprinkle some cinnamon on it, makes it nice.
Or like core pudding. Have you guys tried the pudding yet?
I have not tried the actual pudding and I need to, but we're about to place a big order.
So
I have two things of it here. I have the Fluffernutter and
Yes.
the Rocky Road. And what I will do is I will make the pudding, but then I'll also put Greek pudding or Greek yogurt in it. So then it's
More
even
volume.
more volume
Mhm.
and protein. And it's really good.
So I'll usually do like I try to save like 40 grams worth of protein for the evening. I've also got 220 grams of protein to eat every day, so
Fair.
big deal. But I'll end up doing I'll do a scoop of the core pudding, and same thing, fluff vanilla all the way. That is my jam. I will add the PB2 powdered peanut butter, 20 grams worth of that with a scoop of the core pudding. And then I'll add in 3 ounces of Fairlife skim milk. So it's fat-free, 6 grams of carbs, 13 grams of protein in a full 8-ounce serving. So I'll pour a whole glass. I'll use 3 of it in there. And now between all of the stuff, there's 40 grams of protein. I believe it's 3 grams worth of fat is what it works out to being. And you're coming in under 10 grams of carbs. Like, it's super good. It's super delicious. I cannot recommend that enough. That is like my go-to nighttime little sweet hit. But totally, recognizing, look, if I'm hungry, I'm going to go over on protein. And that protein, it's going to be filling. It's the highest thermic effect of the macronutrients. Look at a tablespoon of olive oil, right? 14 grams of fat, 126 calories. Christina, could you imagine eating, what would that be, 5 servings worth of broccoli just to get the same calorie equivalent?
Right,
Gross.
right. And like people will hit that super fast with something you can grab from your pantry if you're just looking for something that you can get in your mouth as quickly as possible. Like peanut butter. I mean, it's the same thing, right? Like I don't think a whole bunch of people are pouring themselves a tablespoon of olive oil unless there's somebody who's like trying to bulk. I remember a million years ago when I had done the RP diets, and you know how they have like their like templates and stuff. I
Mhm.
would be in their Facebook group and people would be like, I don't know how I'm supposed to get all of these fats in for the day. And people were like, drink olive oil. And I was like, well,
I mean, I wouldn't drink it, but I'd use it to like coat the chicken or coat
can you
the flank
imagine? Just
steak. But oh
glug,
my,
glug, glug. Yeah, no, I couldn't do it. But peanut butter all fucking day. Like that is my favorite. Like I could just do that forever. Oh, dieting tip. Okay. So if you're like me and you need peanut butter in your life, I probably need peanut butter more than I do chocolate. If your macros are super low and you want to stretch that peanut butter out, put it in the microwave. And you can't do it for too long. You have to do like 10 seconds maybe, or you're going to burn it. And that looks
Mhm.
and smells funny. But if you do that and then you drizzle it and it's like
Mm-hmm.
thin and you get that drizzle action all over like your bowl of oatmeal and stuff like that, then you get some in every bite. And I used to stretch like 6 grams of peanut butter. Like,
You
and
can
I
do
could
it.
like all over a rice cake. And like it's so much better than if you try to do like a sad little smear. So,
Fair. One of the things we haven't touched on that I think is really important is like social gatherings and dealing with friends and family and people who will and probably will make like comments about, oh, you're eating that? Well, why don't you enjoy yourself? Or how to navigate social events
yeah, they
and
start
that
putting
sort
that
of
like
thing.
pressure on. You know, I know we've done topics like full on podcasts about this.
We absolutely have, yeah.
You know, but just some of the kind of basics, you know, number one, you know, prioritize and recognize how special, how important is the event that you're at, you know, or yeah, if I'm just at my uncle's house for the barbecue and he's making his poppers that I talked about, he's going to make them again. They're not going away. I mean, hell, I even have his recipe, right? So while it's going to be, I know that the poppers that he makes are a full on 10 out of 10. I know that the next barbecue that he invites me over for, they're going to be there still. You know, is it Thanksgiving? Is it Christmas? Is it, you know, some type of big holiday event that comes around once a year? Is it your birthday? Right? Like, okay, maybe we just view this as, hey, for that one meal, we're just going to do something that is fun but responsible, right? You know, kind of the equivalent to, so my family vehicle is a Jeep Wrangler, right? It's fun, but it's also very practical. My doors open up past 90 degrees for the back door. Like loading a car seat in and out of that, like with the carrier going into the base, was amazing. And I remember everybody looked at me and was like, Phil, you're getting a Jeep Wrangler, you know, that's not a family vehicle. I was like, no, it's a 4-door. Watch this. Take one little nylon strap off and the door can literally go to touch the driver door. Like it's just like a minivan. It's even got the same motor as the Chrysler Town and Country. So it's even joked about in the Jeep community as being a minivan. But it's fun, but it's practical. So maybe the birthday dinner equivalent is, all right, I'm going to do a steak, right? Like steak is my favorite food. That is absolutely my go-to. So look, would I love a big juicy tomahawk ribeye? Absolutely. But there are different cuts of steak that we can get that are going to also be really lean, like in filet mignon or the tenderloin. That's 7 grams of fat, 26 grams of protein. That is really lean. In a flat iron, there's going to be 9 grams of fat and 23, 24 grams of protein. You know, you can still make these really good, really flavorful. All right, I had something, is it a little bit higher in fat than, you know, cod or tilapia or chicken or tuna or shrimp? Yes, but it's a steak. It's my birthday. It's literally one meal, and stop it from turning into one meal into 3 meals into a week. So that's probably like my biggest thing that I recommend with people whenever it comes to outside influence and also what does that person's opinion really matter to me at the end of the day versus my
Right.
goals?
I was going to say with that, like a lot of the times, if you just take a second to think about the person, like, cause you usually know they're going to say something, right? Like, it's not like you show up and you're like, oh, I can't believe you're the person who said something to me about this. Like, going in, oh, great. She's going to say something. Are they somebody who could accomplish the goal you're trying to accomplish? Because chances are they're not. And so like lean into that side of things. Like I'm generally all for like the way Phil had put it, like figure out a way to make something delicious work, right? Like do the best you can with it to a certain extent. And then like there's sometimes where I'll have to tell people like you need to get through that one event or whatever where you don't know how to get past it. You need to just do it. And we're not going to have any excuses of the fact of, oh, well, it's this or it's that. Shit, I've had people prep through Christmas and like you can't just throw it to the wind. Wasn't it like, is it the LA Fit Expo that's like right at the beginning of January?
Right at the beginning of the year. Yep.
Yeah, they are not fucking around with Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Like they're sticking to their stuff. Right. Now, like lifestyle diets, you always need to be that extreme with things. Not necessarily.
Not always, but like I last year I was working with a guy that he had to either make weight or make tape for his officer's exam into the military.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're going into OCS. Like you have to be able to do this and your target date is the middle of January.
Yep.
It's one Christmas out of how many?
Christmas is super easy to diet through too. Just have fucking turkey.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing is that people get in their heads about there's just no way and everyone's going to be mad at me and my Christmas Santa's not going to come, like, and they get all worried if they're not the ones having all of the fun when like it doesn't need to be focused on that, which I know we talked about in that one we had done where it was like kind of on this where like the focus doesn't have to be food, like enjoy your family, enjoy those kinds of things. But I'm telling you, if you take that one event where you're like, there's no way I'm going to make it through this and you stick to your guns and you get through it, the next one is that much easier. And then you start reframing all of this. And I like to talk to people. Like I had somebody recently who, or that I'm working with right now, she's getting married in 2024, like May or something like that. And when that all got set, we were backing out of a fat loss phase. And she was like, how do we make sure we get into like the best place for my wedding 2 years from now? Like we're having that talk. And we literally,
I love that she's thinking that long term. That is like,
right. Well, I might repeat myself a lot. Right. So I've like hammered this in. And we always like pull out the calendar and we're going to look at this. And I need you to identify the chunks of time where I don't want to hear anything about it. Because like, if it's so important to you that we get to this certain place for your wedding, then it can't be like, oh, well, it was summer and, you know, barbecues, beers, like stuff like that. Like, no, if we're going to jump into a fat loss phase, I need to hear you say, I will move like mountains to make sure that this goes well. Otherwise, we're probably not ready. And so if we were going to like look at trying to set up multiple, like, because we're going to, you know, kind of roller coaster our way into the situation so we don't have to get too crazy with stuff. It's like we need to identify those times where it's not so bad to say, I can buckle down and I can do what I need to do for this time period. And I feel like diets are so much more successful if we plan them out that way. And we say, I'm going to stick to it, like no matter what. And like, I like to tell people, let's get in and get out. Like, I don't want to fuck around in this diet forever where we're just going back and forth and spinning our wheels. If we're going to do it, let's do it big time. And then let's pull out. Like, let's not lose the weight and then gain it and lose the weight and gain it. Because we're not talking about people who are trying to, you know, bulk and cut and like do those kinds of things. Like we're talking about people who just want to get to a place in their life where they can buy their jeans and have them fit for years. Right. And like, having to buy a bunch of different ones.
Feel comfortable wearing a 2-piece at the pool with their kids.
Right.
Okay.
Forever.
Noted. Next time I'm at the pool, I'm wearing a 2-piece.
I would love to see that.
It.
Please do so. Expected. But like Christina, you make a really good point. It's like, first of all, you do not want to diet forever. and I think a lot of mentality, especially for individuals who have a good amount of weight to lose, it's like, well, this is going to be my life forever. No, it's not. And you can also do multiple dieting periods. I have a handful of clients right now that I can think of, like off the top of my head, where we have done, that, like you said, I love that roller coaster of, hey, we're going to diet for an X amount of time. We have a specific date. And then we're going to build back out. We're going to reverse diet. We're going to sit here and we're going to maintain your body composition. We're going to practice healthy habits. We're going to have a little bit more nutritional flexibility. Then we're going to go into it again, right? Like it sounds like, oh my God, it never ends. But I mean, also, if you're just gaining and losing the same 5 pounds, well, that also never ends. So like,
think about how long it took school, like from kindergarten
yeah,
to graduating high school or college or trade school. Like you got through, 13 years worth of school. Why does it seem like 13 months worth of learning about nutrition is suddenly insurmountable?
yeah. I'm wondering if we can give the listeners like any numbers. Like, do you guys have any numbers as to like how long a dieting phase
So
should be, I guess, or how long is too long, or
for me, it always starts with the individual, right? Like I usually want to see between 1 to 2% of weight lost per week.
yeah.
Slower is better. Studies show that's going to prove that you are losing more body fat than anything else. So I usually want to see about a 1 to 2% drop per week. But as I get to know someone and I know more about their dieting history, hey, a half a percentage to 1% might be what that person can just do and maintain. I also think about the starting point. I mean, I've worked with clients that were 600 plus pounds. That's someone that is going to be in a long term. Whenever we think about dieting on a macro cycle, they're going to be in a diet for a longer time versus somebody that says, well, hey, I've got like 10 pounds I want to lose. I've got, about 3 months until, this event, or, we're having family photos taken or whatever. Okay, well, we're probably looking at that event as the timeline for how long we're in a fat loss phase. So that's kind of what I usually will look at first is, again, individual, how much weight do we have to lose? And is there an event that we're trying to lose weight for? Um, that's just kind of all my starting points. Like I always tell people, think about that. Think about, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds in the next 10 weeks. Okay. And you're 150 pounds saying you want to get down to 130. That is not going to be sustainable. The methods that we would have to do. Let's maybe rephrase and rethink, our timeline. Oh, I don't care if it takes me all year. I want to lose 50 pounds. If you're a 200-pound guy and you're saying that, well, I don't want you in a fat loss phase for that long.
Mm-hmm.
And also now we're getting too focused on the scale. Let's focus on other metrics like your body composition. Let's focus on your waist measurement. Let's focus on your relationship with food. Let's focus on your training. You know, that those are a lot of my things. Generally though, I don't like anyone to be dieting for the majority of the year. So I'll typically, even if someone's got, 40 pounds they want to lose, I'll say, look, at 20 weeks, we're capping this. We're going to go into a maintenance phase. If we've hit 40, awesome. If we haven't, then we're going to maintain. We're going to rebuild that metabolism. We're going to have some fun training. We're going to train like an athlete, build more muscle, and we'll make the last 5-10 pound cut from a lot higher calories next time around.
Yeah. I like to do something similar, like as we're going, where I'll kind of give them like long range planning. Like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, this week we can do this, but I'm telling you, if we don't see a good amount of movement within the next like 2 weeks with this, like we're done. Like if we're at the end of something and like you can kind of tell we've reached like the point where it's not worth it to push much longer.
How can
But
you tell?
ooh, so there's a lot of things that go into that, right? A lot of it's going to come down to like, I value the personal notes section of our check-ins so much more than anything else. And it's funny
Absolutely.
because whether they're super long or they end up being super short, you can pull so much from it, especially if there's somebody who normally will write like paragraphs and then all of a sudden you get nothing or like a sentence and you're like, all right, they're pissed. They don't want to talk about this. Like we need to dig into what's going on. But I mean, if we're getting to a point where I'm getting a lot more feedback of like, I couldn't stick to it this week. I couldn't get it all done. I just really can't stop thinking about this food. Those will be a big sign that like, maybe this just isn't worth it, because especially with the lifestyle side of things, like I'll tell people like this experience and this relationship of like coaching should be adding positively to your life. And so if you are in a diet and all you're thinking the whole time, like we've been doing it for a while, we've made some progress, but because you have, this could be a whole other topic, picking a number just out of the sky and saying, I want to be that one. And like, maybe you've never been it before. And you're like, I need to be this weight. And then you tie yourself to it. And then, maybe we're so close and we've made crazy progress, but we're like 5 pounds away. And it's like, well, I'm just a failure and I'm disgusting because I didn't get to 130 pounds. I hate myself, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, whoa, friend, like we got to pull this back. Like this is supposed to be making your life, like you said, if we lose this weight, it's gonna make your life better. And now you're shitting all over yourself and all the hard work you've done. Now you can squat 180 pounds. Now you can do this or that. You're running with your kids. You're like, your pants fit great, all of this different stuff. Why are we getting grumpy? Because this magical number we've never experienced before is still elusive. Like the world hasn't ended. Totally. And so a lot of it comes down to attitude. If we've gotten, like I have certain, and I know you guys probably do too, like basements that I'll take people to.
Yep.
And depending on the person, they'll be different. I have some people I'm like, there's no way it's going to be successful if I take her below 140 carb. I have other people where they've ridden, that sad carb land. And I realized I had to stop calling it sad carbs at like 60, right? And now I'm one of those people who usually at the tail end of a diet, I'm in sad carb land. And so like, that's a break I'll put people on to where I'm like, I'm not going to take you further than like anything I wouldn't personally experience myself. Right.
Yeah.
But I won't go below like 40 fats. That's a quick
I was going to say fats. Yeah.
I'll never give you shit for going over on protein, but if your fats routinely start with a 3, I'll start to get grumpy.
Me too. Me too.
Like, fix this and then we'll feel better,
Right.
And so just making sure that we're not getting to places that are unnecessarily mean. Like there's no reason for it. And just like with training, you want to look at like a maximum recoverable volume. And if we're just digging you into the ground and you're miserable and now we're causing lasting issues with digestion because you've cut out entire food groups. You haven't taken a shit in forever because you're not eating, you're eating 20 grams of fat or something crazy like that. And like things are just shutting down. Like we got to fix that, and that's where I think a big part of it too, is people will think they have to like suffer in silence. And it's like, no, we need to know what's going on and talk about all these different things so we can identify like, okay, this just isn't smart anymore. Like we got to try something different for a bit.
Right. Because it is amazing. It is multiple times a day throughout the week that I will ask someone, how are your poops this week? Like,
yeah.
And they always say TMI. And it's like, no, it's not. Tell me.
No.
Are they hard to poop?
Right. Like, look, if it's been 3 days since you've gone to the bathroom and I'm looking at your check-in pictures, I'm going, hang on, wait a minute. The lower abdomen is just looking different this week. We've got some, we're a little distended in the lower abdomen and the waist measurement is up, but the scale is down. Okay, what's going on there? Have we changed up food sources? Did we start eating a shit ton of broccoli because carbs got to that sad carb land, as Christina calls it? If we're on 60, 70, 80 grams of carbs, okay, you're probably getting most of your carbs from vegetables. And that is going to be a lot of food volume, which is great for satiety. But fiber, remember, we've got soluble, we've got insoluble fiber. If we're not getting a good, healthy mix, then it's either going to constantly just pass right through you or it's going to absorb water. And now it's going to be a bigger and bigger bowel movement that you have, and it's going to move slower and slower and slower through that digestive tract. And that is the reason why you've not gone in 3 days. So
And
there's
why you smell so bad, because it'll just
uh,
ferment, and it's
like
not.
And
it's
feel
right up there with
uncomfortable.
it's right up there with toddler poo. Like it just has a stench and it's just nasty. But digestion's another reason though why I try to keep in mind implementing things like, diet breaks, refeed.
Yeah.
This is the sort of stuff that when the diet is getting hard, while some people may listen to this podcast and go, well, just call it a freaking cheat meal, guys. No, look, we call them refeeds because a cheat meal implies that eating is taboo. A cheat meal implies that what you're doing is wrong. What are you ultimately doing whenever you consume food? You are taking in calories. Do the calories, macronutrient breakdown, do these fall in line with your goals? If your coach says, hey, we're going to increase calories by 500 and do a single day refeed, cool, it's planned for. We've got extra carbs, we've got maybe a little extra fats, we're maybe dropping that protein a little bit, or maybe we've got back-to-back refeeds and we're saying, hey, let's pump the carbs up by 200 300 both days. There's more room now for you to fit in. Maybe if your carbs are sitting at 100 grams a day, well, if I just increase your carbs to 140 or 150, now you can get in the low carb, high fiber tortilla wraps and have yourself a couple of soft tacos because you've been craving tacos. Like, who doesn't love tacos? Now you can fit that in, and now it makes you more sustainable because you can plan for this sort of stuff. So
Maybe you can poop too.
Right. At 11 grams of fiber per wrap, you better be able to throw in some raspberries and some greens. You're going to be able to go.
Oh,
So
see, fats are my secret. Like with that stuff, like if people are not pooping,
Fats.
I'll give them more fats and be like,
Same.
did I tell you guys about that? About how my OB like years ago, I had been pregnant and was like, something's up. I can't go to the bathroom. And he told me to go get a quarter pounder with cheese from McDonald's. He's like, don't go anywhere else. Go get this exact burger. And if it doesn't work, make an appointment for like 2 days from now. Wouldn't you fucking know, it worked. And so now, like, and just learning more about all of it, like why we need fats. That's why I get so grumpy about it with people. Like if they're not going, I'll be like, let's try an injection of both. Like we'll bring protein down, bring carbs and fats up, have something palatable that gives you that little hug. And then hopefully it also helps literally grease things up and get them moving on out.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
So then there's also so I know we just talked about kind of free meals and refeeds. Now, the other thing is diet breaks, where it can be easy to hear that and go, woohoo, I am getting that quarter pounder with cheese all the time for this entire week or 3 days or whatever. But let's kind of explain Jess, you want to explain the purpose behind a diet break, or some of the purposes, I should say?
Yeah. Purposes, I think, is really the key there, because I've had clients where, like maybe digestion isn't going really well. Maybe the diet's getting really hard. Maybe we are on really low macros. Their recovery is really crappy and you're just feeling like sleep is bad. Like maybe just, but you're maybe 8 weeks in and you said, hey, we're going to do 12 weeks of dieting. I'm like, hey, let's do a diet break where you bump up food a little bit. So you allow for that recovery, you lower cardio as well. And it can actually help your body just relax and then continue progress. And so diet breaks isn't because, it's just like a whatever time. It's a time for recovery. It's a time to, maybe add that nutritional flexibility that you need for like mental or like physical relief, whatever that is, and to pull back on cardio so that your body can actually recover. But another thing that I've utilized diet breaks for, especially for my lifestyle clients, is holidays. And
Yes.
I've actually had clients go away on holidays and we plan a diet break. Like we went into the diet with the focus of, okay, at this time, we're actually going to take a bit of a diet break, and it's planned. Like, it's not like, oh, I went on vacation and did whatever the heck I wanted. It was, all right, we're going to move, we're going to do these things. And they actually drop weight. And so, like, it can also be a planned way to continue on with your diet with a vacation, with just like life stuff happening. I've also done this with individuals where it's like, they travel for their job. And so, for their job purposes or career or life instances, that maybe they're moving, whatever it is, we plan for it. So it's not a whatever, do whatever, YOLO. It's a planned way to continue on with your diet, but strategically give you a little bit more flexibility so that you can go into it and then push even harder on the other side of that break.
Now, I see this a lot in the Transformation Challenge group, in the Facebook group, with when people ask questions with stuff, where they'll have learned about diet breaks and stuff. And the idea a lot of times with diet breaks is that you're going to bring your calories up to a maintenance level. And so what I'll see is they'll say, okay, well, before we started the challenge and I was doing all this, my maintenance was 2,200 calories and I've lost 10 pounds. So I'm going to go back to my previous maintenance and those are going to be my diet break calories, right? And then a whole bunch of people like, yeah, that's exactly what it says. That's what you're supposed to do. And I'm sitting there like, no. Like, you've lost 10 pounds. Like, this is different. You've been dieting for this amount of time and now your calories are down. And so I feel like this is tricky if you're trying to do it for yourself. And this is where, like, not to plug coaching services, but like, I wouldn't want to do it for myself necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Consider the source of the advice.
Right. Yeah. So,
Yes.
well, and that, like, it's helpful to have somebody else kind of, if you're like, hey, so I'm gonna go back to where my calories were like 25 pounds ago, and that's maintenance, right? And you're like, no, friend, they're much slower and it's not as exciting. And so kind of keeping an eye on that kind of stuff where it doesn't necessarily mean go crazy. Cause I know a lot of people will listen and then they're trying to gain knowledge for how they can do this stuff themselves and everything. And that's one thing where I always want to like crawl through my computer and be like, no, let me help you.
It's like,
you're a different human. Stop.
Christina's going to just crawl through your monitor suddenly.
I'm getting ring flashbacks. I don't.
Yeah,
like that.
Exactly. No, stop macros, energy balance, fat balance.
I'm such a wussy. Like, no, it's not.
Well, before we end up kicking this into talking about horror movies, I know Halloween's coming up and everything, but we're going to go ahead and get this one wrapped up. Any closing thoughts? We'll start first with you, Jess.
I think just going back to that mindset, right? And like why, solidifying your why of going into that diet phase, knowing that it's going to get hard and talking yourself through it. Building that grit, building that tenacity, that discipline, and knowing that it takes time, but it is worth it. Like Christina, you mentioned something like, just stick with it. Like, give yourself that moment of like, you got this. Freaking stick to those promises. And there's a lot more to gain than, an improved body composition from a fat loss phase. You can also gain a whole lot of belief in yourself, and that's pretty cool.
Love that. What about you, Christina? Final thoughts?
Exactly that. Like with the self-belief part and the tenacity, like I love that you said that. Like we said, you can do hard things, but like you can do the scary things, right? And even if we're not doing it for the purpose of, a vacation in a bathing suit or something like that, it's healthy to put yourself through something that's hard for the sake of putting yourself through something that's hard, because it's going to make other things in life so much easier. Like I go back to the fact that like what marathons have done for me has like led to me like being able to do so many other things in life. Cause I'm like, if I can do that terribly hard thing for that amount of time, I can do anything for 30 minutes of cardio, or I can make like this one choice or whatever it is. Like you build up that belief in yourself that like, you know what, I survived that thing and I'm going to survive this too.
Absolutely. So, just keep that in mind, everyone, that look, we've all been beginners at some point. We've all gone through struggles of dieting. We know what it's like to be hungry. We know what it's like to go, how in the hell do I fit in some kind of air quotes pizza, how do I keep up with this consistency so I can achieve my long-term goals? And remember, we're all here to help you out. Feel free to reach out to any one of us. We're all just simply our name at prophysique.com for email addresses. So Jess at Pro Physique, Phil at Pro Physique, Christina at Pro Physique. And we're also, of course, available on Instagram and various social medias. Jess, you can find her at JessBFit_. Then, of course, you've got myself at Pirtle Coaching. It's my last name and what I do. And then we've also got, of course, my dearest friend here, Christina Kassel over on the gram. So if you've got any questions on any of this stuff, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you. And with that in mind, I've already given my random fact. So I think that's a wrap for this one, guys.
Bye, friends.
See ya.
Bye.